The mission and purpose of the Grand Rising experience is to help you learn how to transform your pain into power and purpose so you can claim and embody the truth of who you are. A truth that is predicated and determined by your state of being, and that state of being relies on your reconnection and realignment with a much higher version of your current self. And that higher version is the self who knows that you are always in connection and communion with creation energy, and the self who is ready to remember why you are right here and not over there. The self who chose and agreed to experience the lessons of this lifetime through your exercise of free will, a free will that determines how many times you will have to repeat a cycle before you break it. The self who has the capacity to correct and take charge of the agreements you incarnated into so that they stop controlling you. And most important, the self who knows at a very deep level that heaven on earth is here. It already exists. And it's just waiting for you to show up and claim it.
Now at this point, you're probably going to notice my audio sounds a little different, and it's because I had the wrong microphone selected for that first half, but I'm not going back to re-record it. Many believe truth to be a subjective term that is very individual. And in some respects it is, because when we consider that we each come to this world with a different perspective and lens of experience, that does alter how we view truth. But I think one thing everyone can agree on is that truth is a byproduct of honesty. A foundational pillar of the Grand Rising experience is honesty, and it's the honesty that requires radical self-responsibility and radical self-accountability. And that's what we're going to dive into today, because for any meaningful transformation to take place in your life, it starts with how honest you can be with yourself. And as always, I'm speaking from experience. So this conversation that I'm having with you is just a reflection of the conversations that I've had with myself. A great launch point for this radical self-responsibility and self-accountability that I talk about is through observing your surroundings, the reality that you've created yourself, the people that surround you, the situations you find yourself in, the thoughts that run through your head. What can they tell you about your current state of being? Are you stuck in a loop of what the fuck moments and just completely sick and tired of everyone's shit? If so, and I've been there, it might be time to get honest about who or what is the common denominator of your frustrations. And spoiler alert, it's you. It's always you. Point blank period. No one is special, above, or immune to this universal truth. And at this point, you might believe that Karen is a pain in your ass now, but I'm betting it was Chad this time last year. And if nothing changes in your life, I can absolutely guarantee in 6 months from now, something or someone else will be to blame for your foul mood or whatever problem seems to be plaguing you that day. And here's a hard lesson. You are the only common denominator of your life. And refusing to accept this will ensure that you remain a victim of your own creation. And I know it stings a little bit to hear that. And I know that because I have firsthand experience with it and having to dive into these truths about myself. So if this concept of radical responsibility is triggering an onslaught of buts and whataboutisms, which I know it does, I just ask that you sit in the discomfort of those feelings. Take note of where they are showing up and how they are appearing in your body, and then just ride this thought wave to the end with me. I promise it will be worth it. So if you're feeling triggered right now, I just want you to dig back in your memory bank and think about a time perhaps that you were really salty at someone and created an argument with them in your head. But instead of observing the thoughts and taking responsibility for them and questioning your feelings, you default into familiar emotional reactions. Reactions that, more times than not, move the argument out of your head and therefore out of your control and into reality where they manifest it in real life consequences. I have, And I'm 99.9% sure we all have experiences being both the creator and receiver of this kind of unconscious trauma response. But on the flip side, I've also fantasized about selling everything I own and moving to a beautiful Caribbean island and building a new life. And with those thoughts, I chose to surround myself with photos and music and research and information that allowed me to experience the feeling of what I considered to be at that time my dream existence, where I could swing in a hammock between two palm trees and pay off all my debt with my fancy new job title in a tax-free jurisdiction, go snorkeling whenever I wanted, and just brunch on a white sandy beach. And guess what? I made that happen too. Same brain, very different thought spirals and outcomes. Outcomes that were dependent on my ability to consciously observe the vitality and frequency of my thoughts. And it directly correlates to negative thoughts equal negative outcomes. If I'm thinking about starting a fight with someone, I'm probably going to end up in a fight with them. Positive thoughts equal positive outcomes. I wanted to get my ass to that beach, and I found every opportunity to ensure that that happened. So my ability to transform a negative into a positive directly correlates with my willingness to take full responsibility and accountability for the thoughts that create my words and actions. And I'm talking about the deep-seated thoughts that only God and I know exist. And this is where it starts to get a little juicy, because what starts to enter your lens of awareness is how much your outer world is a reflection of your inner world, if you're willing to see it. The world is your funhouse of mirrors, and every experience is your teacher and contains within it the potential for you to witness aspects of yourself that are currently outside of your awareness. But this can only happen when you stop blaming and shaming and deflecting your soul work, because that's what it is, it's soul work, onto others. You cannot lie to yourself about the quality of your inner conversations that only you and God can hear. You can try, but it will always catch up with you. As I said in the beginning, when we're thinking of truth, we have to remember that our soul chose the path that we're currently walking, and your free will determines the ease at which you can traverse it. And accepting this truth is your key to unlocking the universe. You know, think of every thought that flows through your mind as a Big Bang event that shapes your inner cosmos. A snapshot of your current state of energy, frequency, and vibration that ripples into the world. Nikola Tesla said, if you want to find the secrets to the universe, you have to think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And he's not necessarily just talking about the universe at large. He's also talking about your inner universe and how you choose to govern that. If you want an accurate baseline of what's showing up in your life and why, you must be willing to observe your inner dialogue when you're completely alone and without distraction. And then you need to be radically honest with yourself about what you discover. And if you're not willing to be 100% honest with yourself, now would be a really good time to rid yourself of the expectation that anyone else is required to tell you the truth. Not only is it hypocritical, but when you lie to yourself, you become energetically incapable of attracting honesty into your reality. So if we want to look at current events and governments and corporations and structures and systems that are inherently dishonest, can we as citizens, as people, as human beings of this world, demand honesty and transparency from them if we're not willing to do that within ourselves first? And not only that, but what does it tell us as a collective where our energetic baseline is? It's a big question. And I think a lot of the solutions that we're seeking outside of ourselves right now and inside of these institutions start within us individually. And the sooner we get to work on correcting this inside of ourselves, the quicker we will see the correction around us. And it starts with our thoughts. The thoughts you create when absolutely nothing is demanding your attention determines the reality you will experience. And I say create because your thoughts are either being created from the frequency ruled by the limiting ego and emotional self, or from the infinite higher states of self. But your free will is the tricky mistress that grants you the power to choose what your attention and energy fuels, and whether you are going to allow your thoughts to spiral up or down. Thoughts always become things, and the frequency of your thoughts places limits on the quality of who and what you will attract into your life. But what exactly does that mean? Dr. David Hawkins developed a conceptual framework that analyzes a variety of psychological and spiritual states. And he's created a numerical scale, which, while it can be debated, his general philosophy that backs this scale is in alignment with many ancient teachings, and it indicates that higher levels of consciousness correspond to greater psychological and spiritual integration, and thus harmony with life. So if you pop over to grandrisingexperience.substack.com and look up the article that says, "It's not them, it's you," I have a copy of this graph inside of that article. And in this graph, he's looking at self-identification, location, dimension, vibration, and color, levels of consciousness, and categories. So for example, under location, he has it broken down into hell, purgatory, the in-between, paradise, and heaven. And the categories are victim and abuser consciousness, which correlate with hell and purgatory. Self-empowerment, which is in the in-between, and then self-realization, which is when you start moving from paradise and into heaven. It's very interesting, and the graph does come from his book, Transcending the Level of Consciousness. Definitely a worthwhile read. I highly recommend it. But the reason I resonate with this graph is because it allows me to visualize where my limits may currently be constructed based on what I'm observing when I'm staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m. And it also provides a roadmap to begin to reframe and rise above my current state. And it's undeniable that current societal structures and belief systems are heavily rooted in the victim and abuser consciousness, the 3D. So I invite you to pay attention to the thoughts and feelings that elicit shame, guilt, fear, grief, anger, and apathy, all emotions and levels of consciousness that he has listed in this graph. Equally, question what you've been taught about desire and pride, traits that society covets as positive, yet according to his graph, sit very low on the frequency scale. And something that I think that's worthwhile keeping in mind as you go through this process of observing your thoughts and diving a little deeper into self-acceptance and accountability and responsibility is that the ceiling of the ego is only the basement of the higher mind. So just when you think you can't go any further, you're really just getting started. And that is the beauty and the power of questioning belief systems and always being willing to burn down everything you believe to be true in pursuit of claiming and embodying the truth of who you are. Frequency cannot lie. Therefore, it is impossible to lie to the highest aspects of self. And lying, which is just a byproduct of your refusal to take 100% responsibility and accountability for every single thing that shows up in your life, caps your potential by creating disease in the mind, body, and soul, which ultimately just traps you inside of a prison of your own design. Honesty truly is the best policy, and it originates within, starting with your thoughts. Anything that prevents you from accepting full responsibility for the quality and purification of your thoughts is ultimately what creates your own suffering. And it was at the apex of my battle with burnout when I first came to the hard realization that whatever I wasn't changing, I was choosing. That my life would never improve until the choices I was making did. And because my choices will always be driven and guided by the quality of my thoughts, I needed to start there. And the funny thing about lessons is they never stop showing up. Even when you think you've learned them, even when you think you've mastered it, All they do is just throw on a different disguise to test the level of conscious awareness you can hold throughout your day. And I had to start getting really curious about my subconscious thoughts and how they were materializing in my life so I could learn how to crack my own code. I'm really good at finding and complaining about patterns in others. But now it was time for me to bear witness to my own self and start getting curious about my own. So I started getting curious about how I spent my time. And sure, time is a construct, but when you're trying to take charge over your thoughts, it really is a great tool to help quantify who and what is getting your attention. Because after all, the focus of your attention is the direct result of what you spend your time thinking about. And then what gets and holds your attention informs your thoughts. It's like this rinse repeat cycle that is very, very real. And it's important to remember that the best thieves in the world know how to steal your time. Attention is your most valuable asset and must be treated as such. And if you don't take full responsibility and accountability over what you spend it on, others will absolutely exploit it, and so will your subconscious programming. So every time you find yourself scrolling mindlessly or getting triggered by external events and allow other people to live rent-free in your head, you are ultimately diluting your creative potential, which is your intrinsic value. Again, it's not them, it's you. You can't be a victim and a willing participant at the same time. So you must learn how to start breaking these cycles. So as I was becoming more conscious of my thoughts, I naturally became more curious about my subconscious thoughts. So instead of ruminating on other people, places, and things, I started getting really curious about what was driving me to do the things that I do, what was underpinning my habits. And I began to analyze what I do when I'm on autopilot, which is when I started to become aware of how many times I walked to the kitchen and opened the fridge or cupboard looking for snacks. Something I know y'all can relate to. So I began making mental notes of what I was thinking and feeling or doing in the moments leading up to my journey to the kitchen, so that I could try and start to connect the dots backwards, looking for the root, like why was I doing this? And I'd be walking, I can so vividly see myself just like slowly walking and getting to the door and having full conscious awareness that I'm like walking to the fridge and putting my hand on the handle and opening the door. And then I would just stand there and stare into the fridge and have like this internal therapy session with myself, trying to understand why I was reaching for food when I was not hungry. And I am a self-professed snackosaurus, and I have always loved to eat the entire spectrum of my feelings. I do it when I'm happy, I do it when I'm sad, when I'm angry, when I'm bored. Food is just what I do. It's what I reach for. And because of this, my weight has always felt out of my control. And I did what most people do, and I just blamed my genetics for it. I've always found it difficult to maintain a healthy, balanced weight, which in my mind was maybe like a 5-10 pound at most fluctuation. And I will never forget coming home from my first year of university and tipping the scales at 230 pounds. I was devastated by that. And then I got to work and I started working out and I started paying more attention to what I was eating, and I watched my weight go down. But even going through that experience and watching myself literally volley probably between like 100-pound range over the last 20 years, nothing was really sticking. It's like I still was not capable of taking responsibility for how I was constantly getting myself into that situation. And it was through these fridge therapy sessions that I was able to start transforming my relationship with my body and how I fueled it and loved it and punished it and why. And this was literally the first myth I remember busting with this newfound curiosity that I had about my subconscious. And this is one of the topics that I will be going much deeper on inside of the Cocoon membership as we work through the pain pyramid that underpins the work I do within the Grand Rising experience. And as I move deeper into this journey of taking radical self-responsibility and accountability, which I didn't realize that's what it was at the time, but as I moved deeper into this journey, I ran across this quote from Steve Jobs where he said, "You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever." This approach has never let me down, and it has made all the difference in my life. And I couldn't agree more. And my own life experience has shown me that. The habits, patterns, and beliefs that get created inside of your thought attention loop determines the level of consciousness and frequency you operate within and therefore emit. Because remember, you can only attract what you put out. And lucky for you, in 2023, your attention literally has a blueprint with verifiable metrics that you can access at the click of a button. And also because your physical relationships typically have a digital imprint, this can allow you to begin to assess how you connect with others without them even being in the room. So this is where you get to have your own little digital history lesson, if you will. So we can't ignore how we use technology when we want to think about how we spend our time. So here are a few ways that you can evaluate how you're currently spending your time, assess who and what is getting your attention, and begin to reflect on how this is either feeding or being fueled by the current state of your thoughts. So my challenge today is for you to do an honest audit of your phone or your tablet or your laptop or all three. How much time are you spending on all of your devices per day? And you can find this very quickly in your settings. What is the breakdown by app? Are you on your social media? Are you on news sites? Are you texting? How are you using it? What apps are you visiting most frequently? And then how much are you consuming versus commenting versus posting? So where are you just mindlessly scrolling? Where are you engaging in dialogue through comment sections or in text messages? And then how much are you posting? How much external validation are you seeking? Who do you call and text most frequently? And then go into your internet browsing history and take a look at the kind of information you are searching for on a regular basis. And this can be a really confronting exercise. It can be scary. It's an exercise that's almost comparable to reviewing your finances and putting together a budget for the first time. And it's because you're literally finding out if your habits and patterns reflect thoughts that have you operating in the red or black, so to speak. And that can really suck. But once you know who and what is getting your attention and time, which is your currency, which is your intrinsic value, you can begin to make an honest assessment about how it makes you feel. And how you feel creates the ripple around you, and it can allow you to know if your time and attention is bringing you closer or further from creating a reality that is aligned with your true self. Now, when I started following the tracks of my digital footprint in 2018, I was horrified and so embarrassed at the amount of time and potential I was wasting. And it was shameful, because the funny thing about seeing things is you can't unsee it. So because I was so obsessed with my self-conscious and my thoughts, I couldn't just ignore it. I had to do something about it. It caused me to look at my Instagram account, who I was following and who was following me, and I just purged it. I basically went down to 0 and started to become very intentional with the type of content I was consuming. And not only what I was consuming, but who I was allowing to watch me. I was very, very committed at that time to, and I still am, but I was in the early days of this journey of self-development, and I ensured that my feed was reflecting that back to me. I was really only interested in posts that were expanding my consciousness or challenging my fitness goals, and anything that was providing me with tools to heal past traumas and inspire me to step outside of my comfort zone. And just for fun, I kept anything related to dogs dogging and cats just being adorable little assholes, because you still need a little joy in your life. But if I was going to pay others with my attention, because I was starting to understand that my attention was my currency, I wanted to ensure that I was getting equal or greater exchange for it. So I had to start asking myself questions like, if a stranger found my phone, what would my conversations reveal about the quality and depth of my relationships? Was my digital footprint stuck in the past, rooted in the present, or future focused? Does my browser history reflect if I'm judging others, or sitting in victimhood, or choosing to better myself? And do the apps that get the most of my attention align with the future that I tell everybody I want? And is my watch, like, comment, buying, and conversation history consistent with my ultimate goals? And the beautiful thing about that particular process and starting with my digital footprint is that, it naturally rippled out and permeated every aspect of my life. And it was an exercise that didn't require the participation, validation, or permission of anyone else. And it became a very powerful process that started to energetically disconnect me from the people and places and things that were stunting my growth, and started to steer me into opportunities that challenged and expanded my potential. So my self-healing journey really started in my phone, and it was a safe space that allowed me to tap into ideas that were not readily available to me in my current season. And I have never met most of my mentors that profoundly changed my life because they lived inside of the books and YouTube channels and podcasts and social media accounts that I immersed myself into during this period of self-discovery. And as my thoughts elevated and belief structures disintegrated, the energy I was tapping into online started to appear within my created reality. Like, imagine that. I was now attracting the people and places and things that just lit my soul on fire. And I actively began creating a new reality for myself. And let me tell you, learning how to create a new reality for yourself is a hardcore life skill. And sometimes you can temporarily forget how to do that because we do end up in circumstances that can lower our vibration. Like, we just have to look at the pandemic that shook people to their core for a little while. But it can never completely be taken away because, as I said earlier, what has been seen can never be unseen. What has been seen cannot be unseen, and what has been learned cannot be unknown. You can't change the past, but you can learn from it. You can grow from it. You can be made stronger, and you can use that strength to change your life and change your future. That's a beautiful quote by someone listed as CW. I don't know who you are, but I love it. So if you've rode this thought wave with me and you've made it here, thank you. And if you felt a few gut punches along the way, take it as a sign that it just might be time for you to get sick of your own shit. Welcome to the club. Pleasure to have you. When you're pointing your finger at someone else, you have 3 pointing back. So it's a really good place to start. And embodying the concepts of radical responsibility and accountability has fundamentally changed my life. It has ushered in timelines, peace, and joy that I had no idea was readily available for me, while simultaneously ushering out people, places, and things that just didn't align or resonate at the same frequency. It has expanded and multiplied the totality of perspectives that I'm able to hold at once, and it's something that's growing every single day. And it allows deeper truths and lessons to emerge inside of every interaction that I have. It's unburdened me of excusing the negative behavior of other people simply because I'm aware of their wounding. And because I'm able to hold myself fully responsible and accountable for what's appearing in my reality, it naturally extends to others. And for me, going through the journey that I've gone through specifically over the past few years, looking at and really questioning autonomy and sovereignty in parallel societies and communities, I've come to the determination that this is how I'm choosing to participate within the collective dissolution of victim consciousness. It's nothing that I have to build externally of myself. It is simply the work that I need to do inside. And I used to wish that this was like a linear journey with only an upward trajectory. Meaning once I created my island dream, I mastered self-limiting triggers and stopped tripping on the consequences of my negative thoughts. But it's not. And it's a beautiful journey, and I'm learning how to appreciate and find beauty in the struggle. And I have learned that achieving new levels absolutely means meeting new devils. And the only way to keep rising and learning is by accepting full responsibility for everything and everyone that I attract into my reality. You know, we are living through times where we can see the lies outside of ourselves within structures and institutions that are crumbling. But we do ourselves a deep disservice when we attempt to correct in others what we fail to correct in ourselves. All change starts and ends only with you. And on that note, I'm going to wrap it up for today. But if this episode spoke to you, or you believe someone in your life needs to hear it, please share it far and wide on all of your social feeds. Give it a 5-star rating wherever you're listening to it, or you can head over to thegrandrisingexperience.substack.com and join the conversation in the comments below. If this content deeply resonates with you and makes you want to say hell yeah, and you have experience with taking radical responsibility and accountability over your life, and you want to share your successes, I'm always looking for contributors on the platform. So if you head to thegrandrisingexperience.substack.com and click on support GRE in the menu, there is a list of ways that we can collaborate together and use the power and medicine contained within your story to help empower and give others the courage to do the same. Until next time, thank you so much for being here. I love you.